And good morning, and I'm going to start with a quote that really represents everything I believe about inclusive practices, and then I'm going to be fairly interactive today in part of our keynote activity. So this quote goes like this: each and every day, each and every child, I have the power, the passion, and the knowledge to make a difference. Each and every day, each and every child. And so as I talk about collaboration, inclusion, and technology today, I want to assure all of my wonderful friends in general education that today in my presentation and throughout, because I know your other speakers, it's not just about kids with disabilities. But when we do inclusion right, it's good for the kid who's gifted, it's good for the kid who's at risk, it's good for the kid who's bored, it's good for the kid who's not motivated, it's even good for the kid who's normal, if we have such a thing. Right? And so one of my themes today will be, during this keynote, is to share lots and lots of practical ideas, but helping you chart what the future looks like, not living in the past. Because sometimes I think as we try to move forward, we keep saying, yeah, but we used to do it this way. And the future is very bright for kids with disabilities, as you'll see clearly in my presentation, if we think about those options in the future. And so I'm going to theme everything I'm talking about is the yeah buts, the past, the present, and the future, and where do we need to go. And so I'm going to give you just a little bit of thought here about where we should go. And one of the things we don't want to do is spend so much time focused on one group that we miss who's sinking behind us. Or we get so busy at saying we've made the world a better place that we forget to finish where we thought we were going. And so we really want to be circling back around from the past, the present, and the future to remind ourselves of the mistakes we've made, but where we want to go for the future. And so one of the things I often hear, see if this sounds familiar, is I meet amazing teachers all over the country. And they'll say to me, Lisa, you know, I love what I'm doing and I want to make a difference, but my administrator's not here. But I can't get this teacher to go there. And so I want to show you the best video I could find on YouTube that says it doesn't matter who you are in this room today, all the way from the director of your state department to the person who just says, I'm not even sure what I'm doing in schools right now, you can make a change. So here's a little theme. I work with districts all over the country, and one of the things I tell them is if you really want to make a change, make it a party, not a pity party. If you really want to change technology, you really want to change inclusion, you really want people to collaborate more, call it the technology party. Call it the inclusion party. Call it the collaboration party. And here's what's great. People that are grumpy, tell them they're not invited. And I will tell you what will happen. They'll follow you because you're having so much fun. They'll stand at the door and say, where's my invitation? But the mistake we often make when we try to chart a new future is we forget to look long term and we fall off the bridge, or we don't see what's sinking behind us. So you need a 5-year plan, and we forget to make it fun and make it exciting. And so one of the themes I'm going to ask you to think about as we go through today is what kind of party do you want to have? So one thing I know is that from brain research, the brain needs a break about every 8 to 10 minutes. Showing you a video was a break. Letting you talk to each other is a break. But here's the question. I have 3 themes today: collaboration, inclusion, and technology. One without the other is the demise of children with disabilities in an inclusive school. Let me say that again. One without the other is the demise of children with disabilities in any school. So if you don't use technology, you don't collaborate, or you don't believe kids could be included, those 3 things have to go together. So you have 1 minute. I'm going to ask you to meet somebody in the room you haven't met, and here's 2 tasks. 1, I'd like for you to, of course, tell them your name, good social skills, all right? The second thing I would like for you to do is I'd like for you to share with them very briefly and quickly the best thing about your job. It can't be snow days, holidays, or summers, okay? Got to pick a different topic. So, best thing about your job. And the third thing is, what party needs to happen in your world? Is it inclusion? Some of you have been including kids for a long time. I've had that conversation. Is it technology, or is it, well, we include kids but we don't collaborate enough? So which one of those parties do you have? So your name, something fantastic about your job, and what do you need to include? Now, little pause here for a brain break. Brain research says kids need a brain break every 8 to 10 minutes, so do adults. Here's the deal. I'm going to let 300 people start talking, and I'm going to ask you to stop. Here's what I say to my students. You don't have to respect me, please respect my timer. So when the timer beeps, if you'll stop talking and take your seat back, we'll do lots of little quick brain breaks as the day goes on. So you've got 1 minute, name something you love about your job, and what kind of party do you need to have? You got 1 minute, go. So in the high school session, or secondary session that I'm doing this afternoon, I'll talk more about the timer, but I want to give the whole room my favorite tip. Ever have a person or a kid who's driving you crazy? You can do this with staff too, I've done that. You can use your timer and say, Mrs. Dieker needs to put herself in timeout for 2 minutes. That means I don't want to see you, hear you, or think about you, but I still love you, and I walk away. Think about it. Just a really quick tip to use with your timer. Instead of putting the kids in timeout, you're putting yourself in timeout, saying, let me make a different decision, all right? So quick little practical tip. So past, present, and future. Well, let me share a little bit of where I'm coming from. You heard the bio, all of that stuff. Let me give you some really important facts. If you didn't know where the University of Central Florida is, in the past, we were the Florida Institute of Technology. So that's the reason for this theme of collaboration, inclusion, and technology together. We were built to serve the NASA Space Coast. And 50 years ago, we were founded. Now, today, we're the University of Central Florida. We are nowhere near Disney World. We're about 45 minutes north and west of that, but we are in the same city as Disney World. And presently today, the University of Central Florida has 60,000 students. And we are a place that looks differently, thinks differently, and we have a lot of really cool parties going on. And I don't mean the kind of parties you think of in college, okay? But changing kinds of parties. And so one of the parties that I have the privilege of leading is the PhD program. And so many of you are here today to convince yourself kids with disabilities should be at least in my class and on grade level. I would argue those are extremely low expectations. Because I will tell you, I have the privilege in the PhD program at the University of Central Florida, having led and graduated 60 students. Of those 60 students, I'm very proud of the fact that 22 of them are culturally and linguistically diverse. The national status says there should be 6. And I'm even equally proud that of that 60, 12 of them have disclosed disabilities. The national data says there should be 2. And so of those 12 students with disabilities that have PhDs, they didn't just go to college, they have PhDs, includes students who have autism, a student who has Asperger's, a student who has a learning disability, and reads at the 5th grade level. But she knows so much about technology, she can make anything sing and whistle anytime she needs to. Because she's brilliant through her ears, not so much through her eyes. Student who is bipolar, the first Hispanic male with a traumatic brain injury in special ed to have a PhD. The list goes on and on and on. And so one of the things I want you to be thinking about when you leave here and you walk back in your classroom, I want you to look at that kid with a disability and say, am I preparing you to get a doctorate at the University of Central Florida? Because if you have any lower expectations than that, you are not going to give that kid every opportunity they have. So a couple of other things about the University of Central Florida. We like to build buildings. It's one of our favorite things to do because we've grown so fast. Really, we've only been a real university for 35 years. We have this beautiful new building called the Mortgage International Reading Center. You saw the Teaching Academy. And in the future, we really have changed our name, which is one of the things I think has to happen in school if you're going to change your practices. What do we really believe and what do we really say? And originally, believe it or not, we were called UCF and students called us You Can't Finish. Because we grew so fast, it was hard. We now have a guaranteed way that you can come in from a community college, you can graduate in 4 years, and we have changed our name and the students have bought into it, is the name I believe every school has to be in to embrace inclusion, collaboration, and technology. And that is Under Construction Forever. Under construction forever. Because all arms of education, birth through life, need to focus on changing what we're doing, not the status quo. And so as I talk about technology, I'm probably going to take some of your heads and they're going to be exploding because the future is already here, yet I'm sad when I walk into schools and not seeing it in the hands of kids. So that's really going to be a part of what I'm talking about. So past, present, and future. In the past, we know where kids with disabilities were served. Let's take that data, you heard it this morning. Before 1975, less than 12% of kids with disabilities were even allowed to walk into school. Now, if you aren't familiar with, and I imagine you are, Brown versus the Board of Ed was passed in 1954, and it said separate is not equal. And yet what that law, which is a huge celebration for this country, turned around and gave opportunities, kids with disabilities were not given those same opportunities. It was 21 years later when we finally said what we really meant is separate is not equal for everyone. And so again, it's part of the history you have to think about. So thinking about that, anybody remember going to school when it looked like this? All right? So anyone remember those fun little sweaters that you wore or those little desks that you were in? Well, here's a question that I'm going to ask, and it's a tough question. How many of your classrooms still look like that? Because that's the first thing I go in to look for a school that's built for collaboration, inclusion, and technology. If all of your classes are in rows, you can increase and have an inclusion party immediately by finding a way to get kids out of rows. Here's why. First thing, if you're looking at these little kids here, I'll use my mouse so everybody can see it from the screen. See this little girl right here? The cute little black bow tie? First of all, if she has a disability and I need to go to her, I first of all have to lose 50 pounds to make it down that row, okay? Because again, look at how small that is. When I get to her desk, it doesn't matter if I'm the nicest teacher on the planet. The minute I stop there, I have dropped her self-esteem. The minute I've stopped there, and our kids with disabilities don't have enough self-esteem to take any of it away. The third thing that's a problem is the minute I stop there, if you're co-teaching in that class, I call that my butt co-teaching class, where this girl gets my face, but what does somebody else get? Okay, not pretty when you move up to the high school level. You know what I'm talking about, all right? And so what we presently need is we need a classroom where kids are looking at each other, kids are talking. You've adopted the Common Core. The Common Core, if you haven't been living and breathing it, and I have been, clearly says the kids are doing the talking and thinking and learning with each other. But here's a mistake I see. Presently, we've got these cool interactive whiteboards here. But who do I see using it? The teacher. It's an interactive whiteboard for the kids to be using it. And in a strong, inclusive school, we don't have a kid that looks like that. The kids are touching, and again, the kids are in groups. So I don't care if you use paper pencil. I don't care if you use technology. I'd prefer you use technology, but the real goal of a strong, inclusive school that's collaborative, that has two teachers in the room, is the kids are doing all the talk and the work. And so what are my rules? Is there's no kids in rows, because by the way, we put kids in rows for the Industrial Revolution. By the way, that's over. Okay, just in case you didn't know. So they could pass the parts down the assembly line to get a job. Today, we want them in groups because that's what the Common Core asks. And so my rule in inclusive school is no rows, and the teacher talk is less than 50%. Teacher talk is less than 50%. So if you're doing all the talking, I like to say your mouth is going, your brain is growing. When the kids' mouths are going, that's whose brain is growing. If you haven't visited the Common Core standards across all content, math, language arts, the next generation science standards, all say kids have to be able to orally defend what they're doing. But they can't do that if we're the only ones who are talking. And the future, I've seen it. I've seen schools that look like it. Here's what's coming. Teachers will become more and more of coaches. Why would I be teaching advanced physics when you can take a MOOC online from Harvard from the professor who wrote The World of Physics? So why can't kids get that information and I'm in there going, you got it, but you're completely wrong. And so I become the person who coaches and the technology becomes a tool. So our roles are changing whether you're ready for it or not. And one of the things we have to think about is how do we work with the technology instead of fight it. The last thing I have to mention, and then we'll get ready to take a little brain break, is we've got to be sure our kids with disabilities our general ed students are disability natives. And I have to share just a very short, quick story with you. 6 years ago, I really, truly almost quit my job, and I absolutely love every moment of my job at the University of Central Florida. And the reason I did is a young lady at my church with Down syndrome by the name of Elise Mundeline, I have permission to share her name, wanted to take my college class. She was 18. She had graduated from high school with a piece of paper or a napkin, in my opinion, from our state. I know you have the same diploma, so I'm on the same rant here as I am in every other state in the country, that said she had shown up every day. Now, the really sad part for Elise is she started by living in Virginia, where she didn't get a stupid piece of paper. She'd have gotten a real diploma. She made the mistake of moving to Florida. She made the mistake of moving to Florida, getting this piece of paper, and wanting to come to college. I wanted her in my college class. I teach a class of 100 students called Disabilities in School and Society. I wanted it in my class not for her, but for the 100 students in my class who had never met the Elises of the world because they'd been in self-contained settings almost all of their life. And so she wanted to take my class. I said, okay, great, enroll. Ready for this? Guess what we learned? That because she had a special diploma, which has nothing special about it, she was not only not allowed to take my class, it was illegal for her to be in my class. It was really, truly a statement I had to make that I would quit my job for her to be allowed to be a guest in my class. I wanted her to audit my class, but guess what I learned? She can't audit with that little special napkin that we gave her when she graduated. And even more frustrating is, guess what? When she turns 65, she can audit my class with no problem. Because all senior citizens can take all classes in the state of Florida for free as an audit if the professor lets them. Tell me we don't still have a civil rights issue. So after threatening to quit my job, they decided to let her be in my class. And she was a guest in the class. Well, in this class, 100 students. Now imagine, third week of class. I said, Elise, I'm going to be talking about Down syndrome. I'm not real comfortable talking about Down syndrome with you in here. And the whole theme of the class is being more comfortable with yourself. And I said, because I'd like for you to do it. She's like, no, Dr. Dieker, I won't. I'm like, okay. If you know kids with Down syndrome, third class starts, she walks in, hi everyone, I will be lecturing today. I'm like, of course you will. I said, Dr. Mundelein, it is all yours. This is a young lady who's been on stage 3 times with Bret Michaels, Kim Kardashian Twitters about her. I'm telling you, she doesn't lack social skills. She stood in front of the class, she was very nervous. She said, hi, my name's Elise Mundelein, I have Down syndrome. She said, I got some extra chromosome stuff. Dr. Dieker can explain that to you. She said, and I'm sorry you don't have Down syndrome. She didn't feel bad. And after 10 minutes of lecturing, she looked at me and she said, all right, questions. Can you imagine 100 undergrads with a person with Down syndrome standing in front of them, asking them to ask them questions? You know what they all did? And I said, oh, Elise, no one's comfortable enough in my class, and that's the whole theme of this class, to ask you any questions, so I guess they don't want to pass. Hands start going up really fast. And one student asked a question that I truly will remember for the rest of my life. He said, Elise, I just have a question. He said, I don't mean this disrespectful. She said, you know, in here it's safe. Dr. Dieker says it's safe. Ask any question you want. She really wanted questions. He said, well, every time I meet someone with Down syndrome, they seem to want to hug me. And he said, I wanted to know why. She looked at me and I said, your presentation, anything you say is okay. She thought about it. It was very cute. She said, I think so. She said, no, I'm sure. She said, I'm sure. She said, I don't hug you for me. I hug you so you feel better. And I looked at her and I said, class dismissed. Everybody go home. She just taught you everything you need to know about people with disabilities and Down syndrome in 10 minutes. And so one of the mistakes we make is, isn't it nice we're letting her on campus? Isn't it crazy? She wasn't on campus the whole time. The 5th class, I'm on the elevator with a student. She goes, you're number 22 on the football team. I didn't even know he played football. She knew every kid's name in the class. She knew, and she's now my TA in that class for the 5th year in a row. Yeah, but it's not for me, that's for Elise. Please clap for Elise, because she has changed the students on my campus by being there. And so as you include kids with disabilities in your school, I want you to think about what they're adding that other students don't have. I'm not going to show you this, but I wanted to just let you know there's a great YouTube. You can Google it. If you want to remind kids and teachers about kids with Down syndrome, it's a message from Megan. And one of the things that I love is the whole theme is don't limit me. And that's what I think Elise has done better than anyone I've ever met in my life, is she's forced everyone to love her so much you wouldn't dare limit her. And I think too many times in schools we look at what kids can't do instead of what they can. So what are some current inclusive practices? Well, I have 7 things that I can promise you. I've been the last 20 years looking at schools and districts that work. I recently spent a sabbatical for a year looking at the most inclusive schools I could find across the country, elementary to high school. And I'm really big at not admiring what doesn't work. I could go on and on about that, but I wanted to see what did work. And I wanted to validate, do these 7 things make a difference? So I'm going to go over these very quickly, and I'd like for you to do just maybe a check, plus or minus as I do them. And I want you to be thinking about afterwards for our brain break, the one that you go, yeah, we got to talk about having a party around this one a little bit more. Okay, not about what's broken, but what's the party. So check plus or minus. School-wide culture. Can the Elises walk in your building and be accepted? Can every kid be accepted in your school? Do you look for as many ways to celebrate the kids who are failing your school as you do the kids who are on the honor roll? Because too many times the kid on the honor roll already have 5 million poker chips, so we give them more. And the kid who's at the bottom is the kid we need to be celebrating. Are you interdisciplinary in your collaboration? The Common Core demands that. Do you know math, science, social studies, language arts, PE, music? Do you all know what each other's doing? And if you don't, it makes inclusion harder. And how many special ed teachers say, I'm super exhausted trying to figure out what's going on in all classes? And again, some common theme needs to happen there. You not just have to have co-teaching, you got to have effective co-teaching. I've seen 2 people in a room together that don't like each other a lot. That's not very good, all right? What you really want is not only people that should somewhat like each other, they both are focused on their different roles of helping all kids. The general ed teacher knows what's on the IEP. The special ed teacher knows their job is to be sure those goals are met every day, every hour, every moment in the classroom. Kids are moving, moving, moving. Again, I go into schools and kids are asleep. Kids are bored out of their gourd. I'm bored out of my gourd. And so I think, how do we get kids active? Yet you hand them a device and what do? Again, that's how their brains are wired. We're going to talk about that. Evidence-based instruction. Are you using positive behavior supports? Are you using peer tutoring, cooperative learning? Are we using all those things that we know that work? And guess what? The Common Core really reminds us we need to go back to cooperative learning and peer tutoring. If you have not done training in the last decade in peer tutoring and cooperative learning, I recommend that be high on your list, because we know it has huge learning gains and it meets the spirit of what the Common Core is asking us to do. And then the last one, grading and assessment. Here's the answer to grades. Nobody wants to hear it. All letter grades need to poof off the face of the earth. Okay, letter grades mean nothing, 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 and nothing. I just want to remind you, they mean nothing in case you think they do, because they tell us nothing. They tell us that you like this kid more than this kid, or this kid turned in more homework than this kid, or this kid got more help from the special ed teacher and this kid didn't. Again, what we need to go to with the Common Core is Common Core standard-based report cards. So now when a kid moves from Florida to Indiana and they've been hopefully on the same curriculum, we now know what the kid can and cannot do. Because an A, a B, and a C says he's missing 30%, you just wish you knew which ones. Because you're pretty sure he's missing 90% from your first meeting with him. So again, gives you something to think about. I'm gonna give you a 1-minute pause. Which thing at your table, you've got 1 minute, you doing well, and which one needs its new party to get started in your school? You got 1 minute, go. See, and your students do it just like that too. When that beep goes off, they all pay attention. Now, it usually works really well. Just a reminder in the back, I don't have proximity control, but you're welcome to elbow your neighbor if they don't stop talking, okay? I'll let you do the physical part, not me. So, past, present, and future. Let's keep thinking. Where do we go? Well, in the past, anyone remember, those who've been teaching more than, 10 years, when we used to get to teach whatever we darn well wanted? Remember that? Wow, I think I'll do, making peanut butter sandwiches the first week. Well, not anymore. If that's not aligned with the curriculum map on the wall, I can't go there. And so one of the things we have to think about is what is the present need of our kids as we make this transition. And one of the things that I haven't shared with you is that I have this other really, really great job, that I'm a really cool mother. I'm the mother of a young man who is just turning 18. He's a senior, yes, okay, do I look excited? Josh is the 24th best gymnast in the United States for his age. He's the 13th best on parallel bars. He's the 19th best on high bar and rings, and he's being recruited by some colleges right now. And so as you watch this, and we talk about each and every kid, you're like, wow, Lisa, you're really lucky you have a kid who's gifted. I would agree, that is like crazy gifted, but at the same time, Josh also has Tourette's and a learning disability. And so for the last 18 years, we have suffered daily in a place called school. And I can't come up with another word besides suffer. So those of you who are school psychologists in the room, Josh has a 70-point spread in writing. Yeah. Basically still kindergarten, first grade writer, all right? And he has a 40-point spread in reading. But let me just share with you that Josh has on grade level in reading, he's on grade level in math, and his writing just sucks. I can't come up with a better word to use, all right? He can put sentences together as long as somebody scribes for him. But as you look at that, you say, well, there's a kid who's gifted. Yet I had to spend a lot of money and time every day that he had enough self-esteem to walk every day through a place called school. He's now just literally this week, I'm probably going to cry telling you this, he just got his first college acceptance letter, which was unheard of. We didn't think it would ever happen. And it's because he's a gymnast, not because he's academically. And he got a $6,000 scholarship because he's balanced in body, mind, and spirit. And the second thing that happened this week on the same day is this young man who struggled all these years got a letter saying you have been one of 4 boys selected across 8 states to go to the first ever Olympic Training Center competition. Yeah, thank you. I know, I'm trying not to cry. But in first and second grade, a great teacher looked at me and said, something's not right. And yet everybody around me kept saying, it's because you worry too much. And it wasn't until the tics started. So a couple of lessons here. First of all, kids with Tourette's. He says, please, mother, make sure every time you present, everybody knows I don't use profanity. I said, yes, because I would kill you. Okay? And so if you think kids with Tourette's use profanity, they don't. It simply means my son has had verbal and physical tics that have lasted more than a year. That's all Tourette's means. But it's very scary if you don't understand that. And there's so much we don't understand because we didn't sit next to the Josh Diekers of the world our whole entire life. But one of the things that I will tell you is that somewhere along the way, he's had such amazing teachers in his life, they've gotten him to believe not to quit. And that's one of the things that we find technology has given him, is the ability to bridge that gap to say, I don't need to quit. I can be successful in life. Now, you're probably saying, well, it's because he's got great parents. I don't know. We're really good at yelling and screaming and all of those things that don't look so pretty. Because having a kid with Tourette's is very unpredictable. Every day in my house, I get up in the morning and I don't know where the day will start. And many days it starts very ugly. My son has trashed our whole house. He smeared a sloppy Joe all over the room because I served it on a hot dog bun instead of a hamburger bun. This is a kid who looks pretty on the outside. He's a train wreck on the inside. And so a couple of things I would ask you. If you have kids with tics, please don't diagnose them all with Tourette's, okay? 1 in 100 boys have tics. But first and second grade teachers, be watching for this because many kids with Tourette's are misdiagnosed. And we're seeing the rise of Tourette's similar to what we're seeing with autism. More and more and more kids with Tourette's. But here's the real lesson. When our son was diagnosed, the pediatrician and the physician said to us, and the psychologist said, Mr. and Mrs. Dieker, we assume because of Lisa's background, you know what Tourette's is. And as I cried, I said, I don't. I have a PhD from the University of Illinois. I can give you the DSM-4 definition, but I don't know what it means. I don't know what it means. And the only way I know what Tourette's means is I've had an amazing group of mothers and fathers who support us and explain it to us. So the number one expert in your school are 2 people. The kids with disabilities, Josh knows more about Tourette's than everybody in this room, and the parents that serve them. And so when I talk about collaboration and technology, I'm not just talking about you as teachers, I'm talking about the technology and collaboration in the hands of the kids and making them successful. So let's see how well you're ready to dance together in collaborating. And thank you for letting me share a little bit of that personal side of who I am. So the dance for curriculum that we need is Josh needs both of you. He needs the general ed teacher to teach him that wicked high level content, and he needs that amazing special ed teacher to say to somebody, the kid can do it, just don't ask him to write. The kid knows it, just don't ask him to write. The kid can understand it, but please turn on the voice to text so he can hear it through his ears, not through his eyes. And again, those are the things we need to have a marriage together. So thinking of a marriage together, in your school, thinking about your general ed and special ed teachers dancing together. Do they look more like an elementary dance, a middle school dance, or a high school dance, okay? And let me clarify something before we go on here. Cartoon, it says there are only 2 things stopping you from being a good dancer, Mr. Jones, your feet, all right? So let me clarify. As part of the dance, one of the things you can't do is let somebody be incompetent in the dance and blame that on kids with disabilities, inclusion, collaboration. So I hear this all the time. Well, my co-teacher never shows up, then fire them. Okay? My general ed teacher won't let kids with disabilities have what they need, then fire them. And that's an administrator's job. Your job is if the person is willing to dance, to go on a dance. Now, there's nothing wrong with you knowing the waltz and I knowing the tango, and we step on each other's toes. That's different than if one of us refuses to dance and sits on the floor like this. And here's the mistake most schools make. I'm going to get Lisa to uncross her arms and come to the party. Just don't invite me and have parties all the time. If everything you're doing with collaboration and inclusion is a party and it's great, eventually I'll stand at the door with my arms uncrossed. And I'll wait patiently. And so again, something to think about. So thinking about the dance. Does your dance in your school look more like an elementary dance? Where those of your elementary teachers know what happened if you ever dance? Little girls raise their hand. Excuse me, miss, boys have cooties. I need a cootie shot if I'm going to go on the dance floor. Or they show up on the dance floor and they're like, oh, what do we do now? Okay, they have no clue what to do, especially in early elementary grades, all right? They're just a little bit weird and they look at each other. Or does your school look a little more like a middle school dance? Where you are dancing, but it's a bit ugly, okay? I'm the general ed teacher in math, and I'm the special ed teacher, and we're a little afraid of each other, but we're going to try this, all right? And there's nothing wrong with that, but I'm going to ask you to give yourself a grade level. Or do you look more like a high school dance? Those of you who chaperone senior prom, you have seen this image before, okay? Yeah. We can't slice you apart because you feel so good together, you like each other so much, and you know each other so well. So I'm going to give you 10 seconds. Here's what I want you to do. Turn to a neighbor. Are you elementary, middle, or high school in your ability to dance together as a staff? Go. 10 seconds. Go. So your goal over the conference, beep, beep, beep. And do you see how that talk just kind of makes you lose 5 pounds in brain weight? You're like, yes, okay, I needed to let that go. So your goal over the conference, if you're first grade, there's nothing wrong with that. If you're new to each other, your school's had a lot of new hires, you've got a lot of people who aren't ready to change, there's nothing wrong with being a first grade dance team. What has to happen is, through this conference, you should set a goal of how do we get to 3rd grade? How do we get to 8th grade? If you're already the senior prom, you should be sharing that with other people, but I have a feeling you're not at the senior prom in all 7 of those areas. So again, you should really say, what's my goal here? Where do we want to get? Most districts that I see, if they really want to get to the senior prom, have a 5-year plan. And over those 5 years, for inclusive practices, collaboration, and use of technology, they never go backwards. They keep saying, where does the future take us and where do we want to go? Well, the future, if we're really going to collaborate, we're really going to have a great future, here's a couple things you need to know. First of all, you got to get gritty. If you're not familiar with this new term of grit, you can watch Angela Duckworth's, that's Angela, D-U-C-K-W-R-T-H, Duckworth's YouTube video on grit. It's a TED Talk, amazing TED Talk. If you don't believe grit is important, Ms. Duckworth, Dr. Duckworth just got $750,000 a year for 5 years from the MacArthur Foundation to do nothing but to study grit. And what grit says is that kids need to be gritty to survive in this next millennium. Kids need to be gritty as we move forward. And kids with disabilities get gritty by just having a disability. Anyone here read Malcolm Gladwell's new book, David and Goliath? Put it on your reading list. It says, I read it and I was like, yes! It says one of the best things you can have is dyslexia. And I'm like, woohoo! And I said that to my son and he goes, I don't have dyslexia, I got a reading problem. I'm like, yes, you have dyslexia. He goes, oh, I thought I just had Tourette's. So again, fascinating. I was like, wow, where'd I miss that part? But one of the things we know is technology makes you gritty. And so if you're looking for a way to get your kids with disabilities grittier, give them hard things to do with technology. Great example. You can Google this if you like, Gen Yes, Generation Yes Kids. It's a program where the kids take over your tech support for your school. Fascinating concept. I was in a school that was doing that. In walked a kid into the high school classroom who was 6. And the teacher had called because her printer was broken. It was a small rural school. And the 6-year-old came in. He happened to have autism. He happened to be fascinated with printers, okay? He walked in, he fixed her printer. He went up, he said, your printer is fixed, and he left. And the high school kids gave him high fives and clapped for him. They didn't look at him and go, oh, there comes that kid with autism. They went and came, here's a 6-year-old that's smarter than I am. Hey, we couldn't fix a printer, but he could. So again, something to think about, grit, and what makes that happen. So kids in this century have to learn differently. There's a report that comes out every year. In February 2013, I'm waiting, it should be coming out any day now, so you can be looking for the 2014 version, that tells us the technology that's coming in the future. It tells us the technology that's coming in the future. And so the technology that's coming in the future, 1 year, 3 year, and 5 years out, is something we're going to let you ponder while we take a 10-minute break, because I've been told to give you a break. When we come back from our 10-minute break, I'm going to ask you to think about this question. Looking at years 4 to 5, how ready are the kids in your school for the jobs that require the skills of 4 to 5? All right, let's talk about the Horizon Report. So some folks said the print was small. This is the Horizon Report. It comes out every year, Horizon report. And I've been following this report literally for the last decade. And what's fascinating to me is it's 99.9% right. So 4 to 6 years, it said everyone would have a tablet. And I remember standing on a stage like this and saying that to people, be like, yeah, lady, you're nuts. Not everyone is going to have one of those little iPhone, iPad, or whatever we call those things of the future in their hands. Well, we're seeing that as the trend across the country because, again, they're there. Flipped classroom, which some of you may not know what that is now what's already happening. Kids go home and find boring stuff at home for homework, and they do the exciting stuff at school. And we'll talk about that a little bit. But 2 to 3 years out, let me explain what's coming, and I want to be sure your kids are ready for jobs that relate to these things. So whether you like or dislike the Common Core, I could go both ways, okay? So I'm not going to tell you I'm like the Common Core fan, but I live in the Common Core, so I understand. It is doing most of the things to get kids ready for these 2 to 5 year out kind of goals. And so first of all, the Internet of Things. Let me give you the Lisa Dieker version of this. I like to try to make things really practical. So the Internet of Things, you go to the store and you buy milk. What's your name of your grocery stores? Kroger's, okay, I grew up with Kroger's. So you go to Kroger's, you buy your milk, you scan it, beep. That scanner sends that information to your refrigerator that now will have a computer in it. You put your milk in your refrigerator. 3 days before your milk expires, your refrigerator says to you, good morning, Lisa, don't forget to drink your milk. It's about to expire in 3 days. I drink my milk. I then go to my trash can, and I go beep when it goes in the trash can, which sends a message to Kroger's. I walk into Kroger's, it says, welcome to Kroger's, Lisa, you need to buy milk. Okay, that sounds crazy, but it's not. That's not even expensive to do. We're available to do that. We just haven't started. That's the job of the future. Kids with disabilities are unemployed and underemployed because we keep teaching them the jobs of 20 years ago. We need to be teaching them the jobs of the future. So that's Internet of Things. Now think about that. Internet of Things and learning analytics. Now, how many of you have folders for your children, if you're a parent here, or for the kids with disabilities that are this thick? Wouldn't it be really nice if the Internet of Things and learning analytics, when the kid walked in the class, you don't test them, up pops, I never got my adding of fractions ever. Up pops, I understand how to divide fractions, but I get confused when I go to multiplying fractions. We know fractions is the #1 problem for kids in math with disabilities. And so instead of, let me give you a key math and waste my time and your time, no offense, I'm not against giving testing, but I've already been given that testing 67 times in my life. So why not have those analytics available? The Internet of Things is going to make that happen in the future. And so the Common Core, but not if we give kids C grades, because we don't know what a C means. So you can see where that fits in to this more inclusive environment. Augmented reality. So game-based learning and augmented reality is what I've been doing with funding from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. I'll show you a little bit about that. But augmented reality is when you know it's not real, but it seems real. And here's the old school version of that. How many of you have ever been to Disney World in Orlando? Okay, usually a lot of people. How many of you hugged Mickey Mouse when you went there? Guess what? He's not real. And so what virtual worlds do is suspend you, like Disney World, into believing it's not real, but it's real enough you believe it and you learn from it. So you go to Disney World and you learn things at Epcot, you do all that even though you know you're not really going through the human body. But you go in the immune and you believe you are. You're not going through the tree of life, but you believe it. You suspend your disbelief, and that's what augmented reality is. Game-based learning is just on the edge. The problem with game-based learning is we don't collaborate very well. All the gamers try to make it a game. All the teachers resist it because the game doesn't teach anything. And so again, that's a merger that we're going to start to see happen, and those are the really good paying jobs. Do you know that 6 hours of games cost about $800,000? The people who make it at a minimum start at $50 an hour. Kids with disabilities, we say, oh, let's have you work at McDonald's. Why not let you be a gamer? Why not let you do the things you love to do, and how do we make that a part? And one of the problems we have is we fear what we don't understand. We didn't grow up next to people with disabilities. We didn't grow up with a microcomputer in our crib. And so we have to figure out how to let that go and let kids have those experiences. What's coming? 4 to 5 years. So if you're teaching kindergarten and these are not your primary goals daily, your kids will never be ready because these are going to be so outdated by the time they get there. So here's what's there. 3D printers, if you haven't seen it. In the future, kid needs a prosthetic device, it will be printed to fit their body exactly. You won't order it. You will buy your clothes, and just like you print out papers for today's presentation, you will print out your shirt. And you can sit there and say, Lisa, you're crazy, but tell you 20 years ago when somebody said there'll be a printer on everybody's desk, yeah, right. Okay, so again, remember doing this with the little mimeograph machine? Okay, yeah, seems like a long time ago. All right, flexible displays. We won't have screens. I'll just throw a blob on the wall, click something up to it, and everything can become a display. So displays will start to be everywhere, and you're already starting to see that. Next generation batteries. I just got a new watch. It's got an Echo Drive in it, which means it needs to see the sun every 6 months. Never need a battery the rest of my life. And so again, that's the thing you could be teaching kids with disabilities. They're going to be rich. Matter of fact, why kids with disabilities? Why not each and every child in your school? And then the last one, wearable technology. So no longer will you look for the outlet. How many of you tried to sit today by an outlet? Okay, really big deal. But I will tell you, you will not look for an outlet. During the 10-minute break, you'll be jogging around the room using kinetic energy to recharge your phone. Okay, it's already there. The things that are 4 to 5 years out in the Horizon Report means they're already there. You just can't afford them yet. So keep that in mind. Remember when a calculator was cool? Now how many of you go to the dollar store and go, who would ever pay $1 even for that? Because it's everywhere else. So again, that's what you want to think about. So what's the challenge? The challenge is, as Dieker tells us, in order to transform schools successfully, educators need, and I'd like to add must, navigate the difficult space between letting go of old patterns and grabbing onto new. Because that's the only way our kids with disabilities, and every kid in school, is going to be ready for the future. So here's some ideas in the future to start transforming your classroom. These are practical things you can do. Then I'm going to take you way out here to things that you go, I didn't even know that existed yet. So first one, online learning. If you didn't know, Florida Virtual School has enrolled more students than any school district in the state of Florida. Matter of fact, when everyone else was laying off teachers in the economic crisis, Florida Virtual School hired 400 of them. We now at the University of Central Florida said we got to let go of old patterns. Our students can now student teach 1 semester in Florida Virtual School and 1 semester in brick and mortar schools. Because how do you learn to teach online when it's a completely different kind of world? But what I would argue is, for example, if you fail reading in the state of Florida, you get to take 2 reading classes. Woohoo! So you already hate it, let's do it twice a day, all right? Most states are like that. And what's fascinating is, at Florida Virtual School, instead of taking another class, you can take the conspiracy code history game or reading game to make up your reading intervention. And it's a game-based platform where kids become an agent to solve a problem in reading or in history. Now tell me which one your kids are going to show up to do. And so the new competition for us isn't just online worlds, it's saying how do we embrace what's already out there and let kids have opportunities to it. The other competition that I think we've got to be thinking about for kids with disabilities that's exciting is personalized learning. And if you didn't know, our kids today are considered digital natives. These are the number of songs they download. This is the number of texts. And if you got a teenage girl, I'm pretty sure they do that in a week. From what I've seen, 3 billion texts a week. I'm like, seriously, does that girl ever put her phone down? Boys text a lot. Girls text in the stratosphere is what we've learned. And then there's 4 new roles that your kids have to be ready for. They have to be ready to be pioneers, producers, communicators, and gatherers. And these are the jobs of the future. That is not in there, so you can jot that down. I always don't put everything in there, so you have to take a few notes. So they're going to be pioneers. They're going to be the person who creates the new Apple iPad of the future. They're going to be the kid who produces things with what's already out there that's never been done before. They're going to use the 3D printer to probably make the first 3D animated digital tactile movie. I mean, those are the things that kids are going to start to do with technology. They're going to be the ones who find new ways to communicate. How many of you, I remember 10 years ago going, I'm going to Skype somebody. Like, you're going to what somebody? And now it's like, really? You don't know how to Skype or FaceTime or iChat or, you know, those are the things that we do now. And so again, that's going to be their future. And then the last one is one that's going to be very interesting, is the internet has provided us the opportunity to gather too much information. Too much information. Because every one of you know that if the internet is down, you're pretty sure life is over. Okay? My best example is my grandmother, who was 90 at the time. My 5-year-old great niece was at her house. She lives in a country, out in the country, people 150 in her town. She's never left, literally never left. Brought her to Florida once. She saw the ocean and said, when do I go back? Okay? So little town, my great niece is there, she's 5, and she says, Grandma, where's the internet? Grandma says, I don't have the internet. 5-year-old niece says, Grandma, what country do you live in? Now, she'd only traveled 40 minutes, but to her, she had left the United States of America because there has to be the internet. And so our kids can gather information in new ways. But what do we keep doing in school? Let's read this chapter and find out about this boring stuff that you could Google in 2 minutes. My son has had one detention that I told him he didn't have to serve, but I'd made him serve it anyway. But I said, you can know that I'm defending you in this. He got written up because in the states and capitals, they were going to learn them. And he said, ma'am, I can't remember them. I'll just Google them. You're disrespectful, and gave him a detention. And yet he had the answer, because he's right. He still can't tell you what 6 times 6 is. But he can do calculus and trigonometry, because he understands what 6 times 6 is. And that's really what calculus and trig ask you to do. A lot of your little parrots in school aren't going to do good with the Common Core standards, because they don't know how to think. And that's really what the next generation of students is asking you to do. Not going to show it to you, but if you'd like to, this is your homework. If you haven't seen the vision of K-12 students today, it's a great YouTube video. That one of the things I love about this video is the kids say over and over and over with signs, engage me, engage me, engage me. For those of you who work with kids with behavior disorders, many of them are enraged instead of engaged. I have found that technology can be a zen spot for some of those students. And again, something to think about as I show you some tools and some things you want to consider. Flipped classroom. Again, all kinds of YouTube videos out there about the flipped classroom. But here's the rule in a flipped classroom. Great book if you're looking for a book to read. In a flipped classroom, the kids work harder than the teachers. How many of you go home at night and grade way too many papers? Something to think about. So in a flipped classroom, I was visiting a school that had gone to the flipped classroom concept. Here's what it looked like. History class, studying the French Revolution. The teacher said, tonight for your homework, when you walk through the door, I will grade it. How's that for getting it done? She had a co-teacher, even better. She said, when you walk through the door, you must tell me the main conflict of who and what was the conflict in the French Revolution. So who was fighting and what was the conflict? That's your homework. Oral exam when you walk in the door. Guess what the Common Core asks you to do? Orally communicate what you know. So the kids walked in the door, her homework is graded, and here's the deal. If you didn't do your homework, no big deal. You could then go and read or do something else to learn it till you could orally defend it, because we're going to be reenacting it over here. She has a 99.7 rate of homework completion. And what she does is she doesn't go home and say, I know some of you don't have the internet and you're poor. She doesn't do that. She says, here's the 6 ways you can find it out. You can call a relative. You can Google it. You can read it in chapter 6 on page 14. I know that's boring for some of you, but if you'd like, that's where it's at. Okay? You can, again, so every kid didn't have to go home and go, oh my gosh, I don't have the internet. But every kid could go home and say, I know what I got to do for homework. And it's going to be oral when I walk in the door, so it's public. And if I don't do it, I'm not going to get beat up, because the goal she wanted every kid to know was that conflict that was happening. So again, thinking about that, and now is the time. When we got new curriculum, now is a great time to embrace new ideas. And so as you're thinking about that, one you might want to consider. And again, you can Google flipped classroom, and you'll find lots of great ideas. 2 more things to share, and then I'll give your brain a little bit of a break. Bug in the Ear technology. At the University of Central Florida, we saved $250,000 by supervising students remotely. We do not drive out and watch you when you're student teaching. we ask you for your tech fee to pay for some kind of camera. Most students have it anymore. And we sign on to watch in your classroom. Now here's the interesting outcome of that. Not only did it save us money, we can now supervise our students 2 to 3 times more. Because when you sign on and your lesson opening was a nightmare, I can say, you know what, let's pretend like I didn't see that opening, let's try that again tomorrow. Because I'm not going to drive 40 minutes to an hour and 40 minutes to see you for 5 minutes, but because I can click on. The second thing about that, for those who are interested in that idea, is we don't sign on to you, you sign on to us. So if something really bad is happening at your classroom at that minute, I know that I'm supposed to wait patiently for at least 15 minutes, and you should communicate somewhere in 15 minutes. We had a fire drill, things have changed, I can't. So now I didn't waste a whole trip out to see you, but again, no, we need to reschedule. Then, for our master teachers, we're finding our beginning teachers mixed results. Marcia Rock does a lot of work with this if you're interested. We put a bug in their ear, and we coach them real time. And so now think about it. You're out there teaching, and I say, look to your left. A kid is about to throw something at you. Kid's like, wow, this is a really smart teacher. I'm like, yeah, you got eyes in the back of your head, literally. But beginning teachers, what we found is we'd say, great job. They go, thank you. We're like, yeah, the kids don't know who you're talking to. They think you're crazy now. And so you have to think about when to use it. But here's the really neat idea behind this. Why not let students coach other students who are afraid of doing something? I don't know how to ask the girl out on a date. Let me put a Bluetooth earpiece on you and go, you go ask her to the prom and I'll coach you. Why don't you, and there's research out using this for kids with LD doing speeches. Someone in the back coaching them while they're speaking. So now that kid with an emotional behavior disorder that doesn't know how to make a friend, you're back there quietly sharing that with them. And you might, I don't know how to do that. The kids do. Here's the theme. You don't have to. The kids do. They're the generation who can help you do that. So you got 1 minute. I've shared several ideas of food for thought. Which one intrigues you to this point in time? You got 1 minute. Talk with a neighbor. Go. I think Alan Kay's quote says it the best. Technology is anything invented after you were born. Everything else is just stuff. And so most of the things you think are cool, the kids at school think are stuff. Why don't you know how to use that stuff that's important to my future and where I'm going? Here's another quick cartoon for a laugh. The more you laugh, the more you learn. It says, oh wow, you're reading a book. That is so retro. I love the fact that you don't have to turn devices off anymore. Again, fascinating thought of where we're going. So let me give you some examples, and I'm going to take you out very quickly to one website. So as I start giving you websites, I don't have images of every website in your handout. I was trying not to kill 4,000 trees. But I'm going to take you to my Delicious site. And delicious.com is a website bookmark place. So it's nothing that exciting, assuming my internet works. Yes, coming slowly. And delicious.com, you can bookmark things you think are delicious on the internet. So if I'm co-teaching with someone and I go in their room to use their internet, it's really great if I have things bookmarked on my Delicious site so that whatever computer I show up in whatever class, I have them already sorted and ready to go. There we go. I think it's loading that time. And so basically I have out here 200, and I don't know, I lost track, 246 or whatever sites that teachers have said to me, this is a really great site I'd like to use in my classroom. And so anytime someone gives me a site, I just add it. They aren't really organized in a way, so what I recommend you do is you make your own Delicious site. Go out to my site, and if you like something, as you're on my site from your site, there will be a little plus sign. You just click it and it will magically add it to your Delicious. And so it's a great way to see, but you'll see there's leveled text for kids to read nonfiction, yummy math. I love some dog math if you're looking for some ways to help kids, all kinds of things based on the Common Core, what it looks like. So there's just a ton of sites. And really wanted to let you know that this is every site I'm going to show you will be up on this Delicious site. So if you want to jot down the name or what you have. So here's a great example of what's going to be coming in the future through technology. And this is a site that's been out there for a while. It's called Windows to the Universe. And what I love about this site is that it's a site on science, because there's not a lot of leveled science curriculum. If most of the science books, the vocabulary is very hard, and the text usually is written at a little bit lower level, but it's still hard for kids. And if you see on this particular site, I'm going to use my arrow here, I can click beginner, advanced, or intermediate. And this site will magically change the level of text with the same concept. So one kid can be reading about the Earth. There's another site similar to it called Star Child that you can use for really young kids to learn about the Earth, or students who are older who struggle with reading. So now everybody's learning about the Earth, but the kids are picking and choosing which grade level they're reading it at. So maybe I'm a really great reader, but I had the flu last night, so I want to do the beginner one. Well, maybe I'm a beginner reader, but I want to challenge myself, so I'm going to do the intermediate one. And then what I love on this particular site is you click this button, and the whole website moves from English to Spanish. So now for your second language learners, they get to pick and choose what level I read it at and whether I read it in English or Spanish. That's what's coming very rapidly in the world of technology and digital print. And so we want kids to be able to go and know how to do that. Some other things that I've seen highly successful is using some kind of flip camera, webcam, any kind of camera you have. Your phones have cameras, again, with permission, but letting kids make their own social stories. You know, what do you want to work on? What do you want to be better at? I want to be good at not yelling at people. Okay, well then let's remind yourself, and you watch that on your iPad, on your flip camera, on your phone, when you walk in the door, reminding yourself what your goal is, and making it a video example, which is richer, we know, specifically for kids with autism. Kids with autism relate to videos 3 to 5 times better than they do people. So again, quick little tip or tool. Another one you could use is Google Docs. Google Docs, many of you have seen, but what we often find is teachers using Google Docs. One of the things that the Common Core asks us to do is to read each other and give each other feedback. Google Docs is the perfect place to do that. And again, you might say, I don't know how to do that. Don't worry about it. Make this group of kids, these 4 the Google Doc experts. Make these 4 kids the video social skills story experts. Make these 4 kids and empower the kids to do it, and you sit back and watch them. That's the concept of flipped classroom. Your homework tonight is to figure out how to do something on Google Docs, to write a sentence. And kids will do it, and they'll get gritty while they're doing it, which is what they need to be successful in life. Google Hangout. Anybody familiar with Google Hangout? All right, the coolest place in the world. So now, I'm the only kid in my school with Tourette's. I could be hanging out once a week with this kid 500 miles away with Tourette's, having a little 5-minute discussion about how are we doing in school and what's hard for us. So again, really easy thing to do, but you got to know how to do it. LiveScribe pen. Anybody here have a LiveScribe pen or an Echo pen? Okay? Haven't seen these pens. They're super cool. So again, giving you some things to think about. This pen will take notes for the whole entire class. Because what happens is whatever I write on this piece of paper, it will now, when I plug it into the computer, turn it into a PDF of now electronic digital ink of my notes that can be posted on the web for the whole class. Now, I love this. One teacher said, I bought this and it doesn't work very well. And she said, what did you do? That was a bad day. There we go. Gotta just go with it sometimes. So she said, I bought one of these and it didn't work very well. And I said, well, why? Did the pen not work? She said, no, I gave it to the kid with a disability. I said, no, 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 no. You don't give it to the kid who can't write. You give it to the kid who's a really good note taker. Then what you do is you say to the student with disabilities, you have to take, I call it circle and triangle notes, where you have to write either something in a circle and a triangle that I've written up on the board. So I've circled or triangled things, and you trade in those 5 or 6 things I want you to write down to get a copy of your notes. So now you're still taking notes, but I don't expect you not to come and get a real set of notes because I know you can't write notes yourself. And so now I've taught the kid how to go out and get the notes because that's what happens in college. If you didn't know, kids with writing disabilities are super popular in college. All right, everybody wants to be their friend because their friend is going to get paid $10 to $15 an hour to take notes for them. Now what's interesting in this technological world, the 2 kids, if there were 2 of you in here that had writing disabilities, one person would be taking notes for you, you wouldn't even know who they are. They'll take the notes, they'll be uploaded online, you'll be taught to go online to go get them and bring them down yourself. Wouldn't that be nice if kids knew that before they got to college instead of assuming they could do that when they go to college? So this pen also records everything the teacher says if you want it to. So now I've got an MP3 file. Now the parent can't help the kid with their physics at home. They can go back and listen to that segment with their student and use that, or the tutor, or what have you. So again, LiveScribe or Echo Pen. If you haven't seen these, Target, Best Buy, both carry them. So go there, try it out. They're about $100, but it's an amazing little tool you might want to consider. Then we're going to do a quick activity. So Kindle and Nook. Which one reads to you out loud? Kindle. Raise your hand if you think it's the Kindle. Raise your hand if you think it's the Nook. Okay, it is the Kindle. So again, what we make the mistake in doing is buying stuff. What I would argue is the person who should make all technology purchases in school are the kids and their parents. And really it should be the kid first, not the parents. So the PTA shouldn't be buying your iPads. The kids should be picking out which ones. Well, I need a Kindle because I need to hear voice to text. Well, I need a Nook because I have visual impairments and the Nook has better visual images. Or better yet, if you can afford it, but again, going with cost, the iPad. The iPad has all of those features, but hard to read in backlight for some kids with contrast. And did every one of you know, don't turn it on right now or we'll have sound all over. I want you to go right now to your accessibility features on your iPad. Everybody go, if you've got an iPad or someone around you has one, look at theirs. And I want you to go to General, Settings, and I want you to go to General. And I want you to go to Accessibility Features, and I want you to see that you can turn on the voice to text on your iPad. So everything from here on that you speak or you type can be talked to you. But what I find is everybody buys iPads, but they forget to teach the kid how to fish. Okay, here's the pole, but I didn't give you any bait to go on it. Now teach the kid how to turn that on, or better yet, let the kids teach you how to turn it on if you can't figure it out. So again, little theme, but it's out there, it's free, and it's built into every iPad. All right, you sound like you need a minute to talk. What have I said that's intrigued you so far? You got 1 minute, go. An image, an image. I'd like for you to try to guess what that's an image of. All right. So let me share with you what that's an image of. That is an image of my son's first 9 weeks of worksheets in high school. Want to guess the number? 2,654. Now let me remind you, you had a 70-point spread in writing. So let me hand you something to remind you what you can't do. And we every night struggled. We were running 120 vocabulary words a week. And he had amazing teachers. This is not to bash teachers, because I really do this to all teachers on this planet. And I said to them, I said, I know you're amazing teachers, but here's what's happening to my child. This is not about what I do for a living. This is not what I keynote on. This is about my child. My child is getting 20 vocabulary from you, and 20 from you, and 20 from you, and 20 from you, because you've created a world that you don't think you have to have anything to do with each other. And it's not working. And the suffering is so bad at my house, I have to come in and do something about it. And I said, here's an image. And I did bring this image of what my son, the gold medalist in regional pommel horse, is laying on his bed crying every night. And the reason is because you've caught yourself in a trap, that you've got a budget for a copy machine, so it's your fallback plan, paper and pencil. Yet I also have to share another image with you. And this is my son in language arts, which is the class he should be failing. In that class, the teacher doesn't use paper pencil. In that class, the kids are expected to create something, and she doesn't care if it's with technology, if it's with paper pencil, and there's an exhibition for their final exam that parents and family and community members are invited to come see the spirit of those kids and what they can do. And so the same kid that looked like this in the class that he should be failing was acing language arts. And so one of the things I want to do is ask you to help me in what I'm doing is a mantra of having a worksheet burning party. I'd like to have like the world's biggest bonfire. And so the next time you go to the copy machine, this isn't about being green, it's about being kind to kids who don't read and write like everyone else. And so before you make a copy, I want you to say, do I need to make a copy of the contrast between the French Revolution, or can I empower the kids to come up with a way to talk about it, or to write about it, or to draw about it, or to put it on their iPad, or to make a comic about it? I don't care. But it's that open classroom concept that we really want to be thinking about in the future. So what's the future look like? Well, here's some things kids are telling us. This is a report that's outdated. I can't wait for it to be updated because I know it's getting old, but it's the last time the Kaiser Family Foundation has done this study. They interviewed or surveyed 10,000 kids 8 to 18 years old across the country, and here's what they learned. They learned that this generation of kids, they called Generation M squared, which stands for multimedia multitaskers. Now, it's funny to me, but those of you who are on a device and listening to me, I assume you're listening. Some people would be offended by that. I actually believe that's this generation of how you listen. That if you're doing two things at once, you're good at multitasking. This generation of kids are that way, yet what do we ask them to do? Sit in a chair quietly, don't move, and let me talk to you. That's why a while ago I gave up and gave you a brain break because you were going to have one anyway, okay? So again, that's what we have to be thinking about. How are they wired? So Generation M squared, multimedia multitaskers. And here's what kids tell us from that report. And it's very profound. I want you to look at the bottom. What percentage of time do students in 2010, so this report is dated, spend with print? 6%. Now here's the problem we have. Have to talk about the data. 80%, over 87% of all of our elementary teachers are white females. There's nothing wrong with that. But here's what's fascinating. Many of you who are elementary teachers love books. You love to read. And guess what? We find our most disenfranchised group of kids by the time they leave elementary school to be little boys who don't necessarily like to read the way we like to read. And so one of the things I would encourage you as you go back to your classroom is to think about who's most disenfranchised and what could I flip in my classroom to bring them back into the fold. Is it to take away paper pencil? Is it to add some technology? Is it to collaborate with someone else they're successful with, like the PE teacher? Is it to have a co-teacher come in one period once a month to give you ideas to deal with that kid? That's really what the future is holding. So my question for you is, what percentage of time, you got 10 seconds, tell a neighbor, do you believe kids spend in your school day with print right now? Go, you got 10 seconds. Give a percentage. So the prediction in that report is the next generation of students that are coming, that are already in your classroom, because that report's from 2010, is that they will be kids that are Generation M to the third power. They're multimedia, they're multitaskers, and they will be mobile in everything they do. The internet will not be something you just get lucky to log on to. It will be something they will be logged on 24/7. Car, house, home, what have you. But here's what I really want you to be thinking about today. For kids with disabilities, the kid who's born today with a disability this year, 2014, if a baby is born, will be in our workforce, cute little baby there, will be in our workforce until the year, are you ready? 2079. And so one of the things I think we forget in school is we keep talking about they've got to learn the fundamentals. Tell me what that means in 2079. I'm pretty sure when we were going to school, the teacher said, I think I should prepare Lisa to be able to go on the internet. And what we know is jobs are changing and rearranging. Again, we know that kids will have 18 to 36 jobs the first 8 to 10 years of their career. And of those, over 50% of them don't exist right now. Over half of them don't exist right now. And so what we're doing is we're playing with something we don't know. But what we do know, and having had the privilege of hanging out at Lockheed Martin, they don't walk down the line quietly to the bathroom with their hands to their side and they get written up if they talk. They actually collaborate on the way to the bathroom. They actually talk in their meetings. They actually don't always raise their hand to speak because they've got this amazing idea, but they are respectful and they use eye contact. And so we've got to start thinking about where's the digital divide, where's the cultural divide, where's the community divide. And my new mantra is the digital divide is between the kid's bedroom and the classroom. What kids have at home, we often don't allow to walk through the door. So how do we build that? And here's one of the things I often hear. As Lisa, you sound really, passionate about technology, and I respect that, and collaboration and inclusion, but I don't know if I think it's fair for kids to have all of that, right? And so one of the things that I often hear is people saying that's not fair. And one of the things I like to do is I ask each of you to think of an illness. So everybody in the room, think of an illness. And I'm going to come around and bug you for a minute. I'm going to think of any illness you can think of on the planet. Any illness you can think of on the planet. People are like, oh, please don't pick me. If you don't think of one, I'm going to give you one, so you're better off having your own. I just will warn you right up front. So what's your illness?
Turner syndrome.
Turner.
Turner's with
Turner syndrome. Okay, so take 2 aspirins and call me tomorrow, okay? All right, and what's your illness? Cancer. Take 2 aspirins and call me tomorrow. What's your illness?
Epilepsy.
Epilepsy. Take 2 aspirins, call me tomorrow. I'm sure that will help. What's your illness?
Diabetes.
Diabetes. Take 2 aspirins and call me tomorrow. What's your illness?
Diabetes.
Diabetes. Take 2 aspirins and call me tomorrow. And what's your illness?
Polio.
Polio. Take 2 aspirins and call me tomorrow. Now, you're like, okay, crazy answer. But I do that as a class. I wear a stethoscope, I wear a doctor's scrub if I have a co-teacher, and I do that with all the kids. And then I say, didn't that sound crazy? If one of you have Turner syndrome, one of you have diabetes, one of you have epilepsy, wouldn't you assume the doctor would treat you differently? And then I say to the kids, well, guess what? We got good news for you in this class. We're going to treat you differently because you're different. And we're going to be fair at all times. I put a doctor's prescription on the wall that says fair means every student in my class gets what he or she needs when they need it. And then I give one kid a calculator. Another student doesn't get it. What does that student say? You have those kids in Indiana too, all right? Yeah, all right. So the kid says that's not fair. And then I say, sweetie, please come to the board and read our prescription for learning. I know. It says, Mrs. Dieker, every kid gets what he or she needs. And I say, yes, sweetheart, you don't need it. Now sit down and shut up. No, don't say that. Think that in my head, all right? But that's the problem that we currently have for some teachers for kids with disabilities. I think we have it for a lot of teachers with technology. You do realize that, I don't know, are you doing Smarter Balance or Park?
We don't know.
You don't know. Okay, doesn't really matter. So whichever assessment you're using, here's the good or bad news. It's going to be on technology. They're going to take it on a computer. So again, if they don't know how to do that, it becomes a huge issue of that it isn't that you didn't teach me great stuff. I just freak out when I'm on the screen because I don't have experience with that. So again, it's blending that and what's fair. And we got to keep thinking about what that looks like. So thinking about that concept and moving on to the future, what are some things that we know are out there in the future? So here's a list of things that we could think about or talk about. And here's a list of ideas. And so instead of me going over this idea, I'm going to give you 2 minutes at your table, and then I'm going to take you into future technology and then wrap us up with a quick story. I want you to think on this list of a paper pencil activity you were planning to do in the future. How could you use something on this list to replace it? And if you don't know of something on this list, ask at your table and see if your table mates can help you out. I'll give you 2 minutes. Something you're going to do with paper pencil in your school, what could you do to replace it? And I'll highlight a couple of these that you may not know here in just a minute. I'll share my 2 favorite on this site. That if you haven't tried Edimodo, to me it so embraces the Common Core. Edimodo is just like having a Facebook for your class, but it's closed and protected and the only people can see it is your class. Met a teacher the first time I saw this in Washington, D.C. She was an elementary teacher. She had an Edimodo for her parents so they could do play dates and share information with each other. She had an Edimodo for her class that parents couldn't see, no one else could see, that they could share their ideas and their thoughts. And then she had an Edimodo for the teachers she worked with. Now the PE, the art, the music, they were all sharing ideas and things they were doing on an Edimodo. So again, you may want to think about free to use, and about 2 million teachers are on it. The other one I love to use is Socrative. Socrative is a way to do a quick quiz where kids can be on any device. It could be an iPad, an iPhone, a Kindle, anything they can get on the internet. So again, they can go on lots of different things. And they then can answer quiz questions, multiple choice, right, and it uploads it into an Excel spreadsheet instantly with grading. So it's a great tool to use if you've got a technology at all. Some other ones, I'm going to highlight some of my favorites, and then I'm going to move you into the simulated world that I live in. Bookshare.org. If you have not used Bookshare.org, it should be required. Bookshare.org is the best thing on the planet. It allows all of your kids with print disabilities to upload books for free. For free. It's been there for about the last decade. There's about 260,000 students across the world using Bookshare. It cannot be used unless the kid has a diagnosed disability, but now they can upload most of the books that you're reading in class for free. It's a shared site, one that's great to use. Learning Ally has a small expense, but again, this used to be Readers for the Blind. Learning Ally gives you the audio files. So again, making sure kids can do that. And then the last one that I absolutely love is sparktop.org. It's a website specifically by the Schwab Foundation. If you didn't know, Charles Schwab himself was dyslexic, therefore he made millions of dollars doing math instead, all right? And he actually funds this site, and it's for kids with learning disabilities to learn about themselves and to play really low-level but fun, engaging games to work on things like multiplication facts, letter sounds. It's a really fun site, and here's the best part. You get Spark Points, and those Spark Points then can be turned into like a Chuck E. Cheese online, and they will mail prizes to your home. So great tool for kids with learning disabilities to have that opportunity to be successful and to have some fun. Lots of other websites out on my delicious VoiceThread, Make Believe Comics. You'll see hundreds of them that are really great sites that you might want to consider using. But I'm going to take us right into simulated environments, and I want to share just a little bit with you. So we're skipping forward just a bit. But here's what I know the future is, because I see it every day at the University of Central Florida. It says the illiterate of the 21st century won't be those who can't read and write, but those who can't learn and unlearn. And one of the things that I think a disability gives you is the ability to find different ways to do things. And in Malcolm Gladwell's book, he talks about half of the CEOs that are in top had dyslexia, either undiagnosed or diagnosed. Because they learned to be gritty, they learned hard ways, and they learned to read for information instead of just for fun. And so I really think that's the whole theme of informational text, whether you agree or disagree in the Common Core, says that the next generation of learners have to learn how to do new things like read the manual to get your iPad to work. Because things are going to get more and more complicated, but make life easier if you can find the right information. And so really kind of the theme where we're going. So what's a simulated environment? I'm only going to spend 5 minutes just showing you the future. I work at the coolest place on the planet. If you're in Orlando, come visit us. I first saw this virtual kitchen, so I just want to show you the future in my own backyard. 80% of all simulators for the military happen at the University of Central Florida. And I saw this green kitchen, and I said, what do you do with this? And they said, oh, we have a project where we're doing rehab for people who've had strokes. And they actually went into this gentleman, so you see the guy right here. They went into his house, they used an environmental scanner, scanned in his real kitchen, put a $50,000 head-mounted display on him, which I immediately said too expensive to use in teacher ed. And he now sees his car in the driveway in a kitchen that's not his. That's a mixed reality environment. And what's fascinating, and this is what got me really excited about virtual environments, is this is him making breakfast before he went into the simulator. This is him making breakfast after 10 times in the simulator. And he went from taking 2 hours to make breakfast to only taking 30 minutes. And when he went back to his home, it transferred 100%. Those are the jobs of the future, but look at the learning analytics that go with that. Because now I know exactly where the problem was. The biggest problem was he kept trying to find the cereal in the refrigerator. And so now the therapist had something very clear to target, that when he went home he didn't go to the refrigerator to get the cereal, and it transferred back. They also had a virtual restaurant where they were training people who had speech impediments to learn how to deal with their speech impediment by triggering their stressors in a virtual restaurant so they could practice before they went to a real restaurant. And again, 100% transfer to a real restaurant. The project that I'm working with has won all kinds of awards, not here to impress you with that, but here to tell you that it's really been a lot of fun to think differently about teacher education. And so this technology is called sandbox technology. I'm going to show you a little short clip. And in this sandbox technology, the future is that technology will do whatever you want it to do. Really and truly, your iPhone, your iPad is sandbox technology. It's just an iPad, but you choose what to do with it, whether you want to play Angry Birds, or you want to write, or you want to read, or what have you, and that is really the future. Well, we created some virtual kids. I'm going to show you a video clip. This is the first generation. This is the second generation of kids, and these are our third and fourth generation of students we're currently using. We have 5 students in middle school, 5 students in high school, but here's what's really cool. Teachers can come in and practice without ever putting a kid at risk. So I love it. The University of Kansas, one of our partners, says no kids were harmed in the making of this teacher. That's one of their mottos. So again, you can Google that online and see, but our avatars are just like real middle schoolers. CJ in the back there will flip you off and pull out her cell phone in a dime if you make her mad. And what it's great is it gives our teachers a chance to practice like the new Common Core lessons in the simulator before they do it with their real students. And our avatars are very forgiving. If we say pause classroom, they forget they've ever met you and you start all over again. We have 0 to 5 levels of behaviors that our students can give you. And so you can have perfectly well-behaved students and practice all day. And then you can have really bad students and practice all day if that's what you would want. But the beauty of the simulator isn't really just the project, but it's that it's with myself, a math professor, and a computer scientist. And what I've learned through my career is the more we collaborate and include other disciplines in our world, the better the outcomes for what we're doing. And if that didn't blow your mind enough, let me just show you where the last 5 slides for the future, then I'll give you a pause and then I'll wrap us up with a story, is we now code teachers' behaviors and they get an Excel spreadsheet and a summary of their performance. So instantly you get feedback on how you did. That's coming in the future. Your kids probably will have some little device on their desk and they'll give you a rating on how you did with that lecture. Again, that's already out there and available. But what's really, really cool is we're starting to work with something called physical virtual presence. I got to get to that slide. We have all kinds of partners for our work. You can see it's being used across the world actually at this point in time. We now have a parent avatar where teachers can practice. And you know what's fascinating? If you want to know, the person who made that avatar gets paid $90 an hour. How many of your kids with disabilities are artists? How many kids with behavior disorders are artists? How many of your kids would spend all day, all night doing technology? It takes a lot of time to get that body into that world. And here's what's really cool. Here's the future. We now have a physical virtual avatar. This is the same student, Sean, you saw earlier, projected into a wheelchair so that you physically, virtually could be somewhere. They're starting to play with at our university. Kids who are hospital homebound can come to your classes themselves without really being themselves. And if that didn't blow your mind enough, they now have a 4D robot where eventually the kid can come wholly as themselves, even if they physically can't move, and be in your classroom with their whole body embedded in what they're doing. But again, those are the jobs of the future, not of the past. So I've shared a lot. I have a story to wrap us up, but I'm going to give you a 1-minute pause. I want you to stand and stretch. You got 1 minute. Of all the things I've said, and hopefully I've said enough, I want you to say the one thing I'm going to really ponder or do something about is blank. So fill that in your 1-minute stretch. You got it? And please stretch. 1 minute. Go. Before I start my story, I want to give you one last image. One last image, and this is my favorite picture on the planet. This is a picture of Inki, who in South Korea teaches English now instead of bringing over teachers to teach English. And yet what I find fascinating is even though they have a robot doing something very specific, notice who's in the back corner of this picture. It's a teacher. And so one of the things I want to reassure you as I talk about technology is it's never going to replace us. Kids need to be hugged, kids need to be loved, but they need both. They need that balance in their life to understand that I need to be hugged and not play games all day. But I also need some time to be on technology and to learn and what I need to learn. So I'm going to go back to the past to take us to the future one last time. And this is a story that is about a young man named Jeff that takes us way back in the past. This story took place in 1973. And for those of you who don't know special education law in 1973, remember from earlier today, there wasn't any law. Not a problem. Jeff didn't need any special ed law because Jeff was gifted beyond words. Jeff counted to 1 million when he was in kindergarten because he could. That's the kind of kid he was. He wrote to 1 million because he could. Well, Jeff's parents have shared some pictures to bring this story home. One day Jeff didn't come to school, and another day he didn't come to school in 5th grade. And Jeff's teacher picked up that thing with a cord and with a dial like this, okay, had to go to the principal's office to call and said, "Where's Jeff missing? He's been gone for 3 days." Jeff's mom proceeded to cry. And as she cried, she said, "We don't know what's going on with Jeff, but he's had grand mal seizures all weekend and he's in the hospital." And Jeff's teacher said, "If there's anything I can do, let me know." She didn't hear from Jeff's parents for about 3 weeks because you didn't have cell phones then. In 1973, 3 weeks later, the phone rang at the school, and the principal got the teacher and said, "Jeff's mom's on the phone." She said, "I have a question for you. We just came back from the top neurologist in the country, and we've learned that Jeff has a rare and fatal brain disease. And we wondered if he could come back to school and be with his friends." Now, what do you think Jeff's teacher said? Of course. Jeff's mom said, "Well, I got to explain some things to you. Jeff's changed greatly. He now beats his head against the wall. He sometimes uses bad words, and he seizes all the time." There was no special ed teacher. There was no nurse. There was no support in the school. She brought Jeff to school. The teacher took him. And by Friday, every day was hard. The teacher went to the principal. Said, you know I love Jeff. You know I love his family. But I can't teach with him in this class. And back then, there was no due process. There was no time taken. Immediately, Jeff's principal called Jeff's parents and said, you know we love you. You know we love Jeff. We want to help you, but he can't come to school. Now, in 1973, Jeff's family had three options. He went to school, he stayed at home with them, they built a rubber room out of old mattresses, or he went to an institution. In 1973, that was a recommendation of everyone. Jeff's parents had a high school diploma and that was it. They took him to an institution. He had to be put in a mental institution, he had to be arrested to do it. The story goes on and on and on. But Jeff's mom, very driven woman, decided there had to be a glimmer of hope. So she began to call every doctor in the country she could afford to call, because again, it cost a lot of money back then to make a phone call. And as she made those phone calls, she finally found one doctor who gave him a glimmer of hope. And Jeff was in this institution getting worse by the day. They'd given him 9 months to live at this point. These are some pictures, Jeff during the institution. And this doctor said, I got an idea, let's do a lobotomy. That was a very common practice in the 70s. We'll just take out that part of the brain that's infected and maybe we'll save his life. Jeff's parents didn't know if that was the best idea, but they decided that's what they would do. 6 weeks before the surgery, the institution called, said you got to get here right away. Jeff has the flu, or doesn't have the flu. The flu's going around, and if Jeff gets the flu, he's going to be too sick to have surgery. They took him home in the middle of the night. He tried to attack them. They brought him back the next day. 4 weeks before the surgery, the institution called, said you got to get here right away. Jeff has a fever of 106 degrees, and we predict he probably won't make it through the day. He's so fragile. When he walked in that day, he hadn't spoken to his parents in about 3 months. When they walked in that day, he said, hi, Mom, hi, Dad, what you doing? And his mother, with a high school diploma, said something's different. She called the top neurologist in the country and said something's different. And he said, my recommendation is if your son doesn't have the surgery, he will die. Jeff's parents can't tell you why, but they called the next day and said, we're canceling the surgery. Jeff stayed in the institution, got a little better and a little better, not great by any means, still seizing, still using bad words, still running away, all kinds of things. They brought him home over the summer, brought him over the next week and the next week, and finally he was home from, they said, we can let him out of the institution. And guess who they called? Jeff's teacher. Hey, we got some great news for you, Jeff didn't die. He's actually home with us, and we were wondering, it's now 1974, still no law, could he come back to public school? Really long pause on the other end of that phone. They said, well, what do you hope for, Jeff? They said, well, if he can learn to tie a shoe, if he can learn to be nice to other people, maybe someday he could be functional. And they said, oh, friends, functional, why don't we have him skip my grade level, because there were no standards back then, and go to the next grade level with all of his friends and a brand new first-year teacher. Jeff went to the next grade level and made D's and F's. And Jeff's parents were like, what's happening? Jeff was really upset, but they knew he wasn't going to learn again. Jeff went to the next grade level, made C's and D's. Then he made B's and A's. And Jeff finally went on to high school and graduated number 5 in his class. He went to go into the United States Army, and they said, we can't take you, you've been seizing. However, it'd been so long they decided to take him after he'd taken the military police exam and scored the second highest score ever scored in the United States Army. They said, son, not only will we take you, we'd like to take you to West Point. He said, no thanks, I just want to go in the Army, serve my country, and get some funds to help me go to college. He went on to college, got his undergrad degree, his master's degree, his coursework for his doctorate, and Jeff and his wife and 3 children lived just till recently in the city of Phoenix, where Jeff was the director of finance for the entire city of Phoenix. But about 2 months ago, Jeff retired from the city of Phoenix. And Jeff is now the chief financial officer for the city of Washington, D.C. But I tell you that story because that young man up there that I'm so proud of is my brother. And it wasn't a doctor in 1974 that saved my brother's life. It was 2 amazing parents with high school diplomas and an amazing first-year teacher and a principal who said, I'm not sure what to do, but we're going to have the best inclusion party, and we're going to collaborate with everybody in this building to give this guy every chance possible. So the next time you're ready to give up on a kid, I hope you'll think of my brother. He says, please, Lisa, don't tell everybody that I'm in DC and I'm in an institution at one point. I said, I'll try not to make that story too public. But he's a great guy, and I'm very, very proud of him. But it really goes back to where I started my keynote today. Each and every day, each and every child. I truly know, because I've lived it, that you as teachers and leaders do have the power, the passion, and the knowledge to make a difference. Each and every day, each and every child. I thank you, my brother and his wife and children thank you, my son thanks you, my parents thank you, and I have to add in the upper left-hand corner my brother and sister-in-law who are cognitively delayed, and they've been married 39 years, and they're the happiest stinking married people on this planet. So thank you for all you do, and thank you for the privilege of being here, and I look forward to talking to you throughout the day. Thank you very much.